This episode is so educational. It really just gives such insight into how a mangaka would feel about their work being tarnished slash destroyed by an anime adaptation or stage play. But also it shows the other side. And that just as how an author can be very upset about seeing their work just completely destroyed, the same can be said for the scriptwriter, and how the scriptwriter's intentions is never to destroy the original source. It's never to upset the author, upset the community, to really just outright disrespect the original source. For the most part, it's either because of miscommunication or something else behind the scenes. And it's just, this is such an educational episode, and obviously this isn't more or less one size that fits all. There's a lot of variables, a lot of things that can kind of weigh into why an anime adaptation is legitimately a bad anime adaptation, but I think that more or less what this episode does is one of the strongest things that Oshi no Ko's anime does, and that is being a vessel to explain the darkness and awful nature of the entertainment industry, not just with, let's say, the toxicity with the community around idols, but also just how either actors are treated through social media, and how people react to such a degree that they no longer treat an actor differently from the character they play as within a story, to just having, you know, a scriptwriter look like they're a war criminal because the work that they're adapting isn't up to par with the original source, all those different type of things, and that is the strongest aspect of Oshi no Ko's anime. I know the visual department is really good, and it definitely helps a lot with conveying all of this, but I think that for some reason, the way the anime adapts these themes is just well beyond anything that the anime does, and I think that is very fitting when you factor in the core theme of what this episode is about, and that is the dissatisfaction of an author's work being tarnished. And so let's get into that. Let's just talk about this. Let's segue right into it. So obviously, when you finish this episode, okay, and you sit down and you conclude the episode, your thoughts most likely are going to be something like this. You're going to think to yourself like, man, the original creator is kind of mean. She's kind of awful. She's insufferable. That's probably what people are going to say. I definitely see at least 60% of the community thinking that. And the reason for that is because most of the episode tries to paint the scriptwriter as someone that is being unfairly treated. In fact, this episode reminds us, even though it showed us in the previous episode, it reminds us that the scriptwriter here, he is a fan. He is a fan of the original source, of Tokyo Blade. He loves this author's work. And so when she comes in and she starts critiquing this script that is wrote by him, it's like his idol, his hero, just crapped on his work, just said, you are just such a fraud that you should never be in this industry ever again. Basically, someone that he admires just did him like that. Now, regardless if she was in the right or not, there is a time and place, and there's words you can say and cannot say, and there's a better way to go about it. And obviously, what this episode tries to convey is that situations like this can happen with the anime industry and manga industry. When you have, a series getting an anime adaptation, there could be a total breakdown with the manga author and also just the scriptwriter and the anime staff because of how things are done. Now, obviously, what this episode tries to convey is that the author here, she is an extreme case. She is a very extreme case of an author being very protective of their work and just being very hard-headed about an adaptation of their work. However, even if this is an extreme case, even halfway of all this, like half of this stuff that could happen in real life, it definitely would be very crazy to see. It would just be like, yeah, the author might be a little bit insufferable. Some might see that, or people might think that the scriptwriter really doesn't know what they're doing. Whatever side you fall on, this stuff obviously happens, and the episode wanted to present that. Now, getting into this situation, despite obviously people disagreeing with the author and thinking that she's awful for basically removing the scriptwriter from the project and all that with just so much time that's already been dedicated to it, and only like 20 days until the actual play has to be done, the point of the matter is that, she gets the final say. She is the actual author of the original work. She has a lot of pull and a lot of leeway, and even if, technically it wouldn't be good for her image within these companies if she was to pull out completely and not have the stage play, she's obviously popular enough to have more word or say on the matter than anything else. And that's a big thing I wanted to talk about at the end of my last episode review of Oshi no Ko, is that what this arc is trying to convey to the audience is that the Tokyo Blade author is a very high-level mangaka, someone that has a lot of weight within the industry. Basically, what they say has a lot of weight to it, more or less than, let's say, a newcomer as a manga author that is writing a new series that might only have like 30 or so chapters. There is definitely a lot more weight from this author. So we can kind of say the equivalent of her might not be to the same status as maybe Oda Sensei for One Piece, but we can more or less say that, she is definitely well known enough to have at least more or less pull on how things are done, or if something will get adapted by a certain source or not. So because of those things, she doesn't necessarily have to worry about the typical fallback of, like, her image being tarnished if, like, for instance, the stage play doesn't happen. Her manga is going to continue going on, it's going to get adapted, even if, let's say, the stage play was to get canceled, the fall or blame would probably be placed on the staff and the committee and all that than actually the author itself. The author will just come out of this completely winning. On top of that as well, we gotta look at the situation with the scriptwriter, which obviously that was a big talking point to start with this video with, is that the scriptwriter, regardless of what he does, even let's just say hypothetically, everything turned out right and this author never had any issues with the script whatsoever, the person that truly would get the praise and the recognition from this stage play, besides obviously the actors on stage, it would be the author. The scriptwriter is basically someone that is a background man that is just not really noticed whatsoever. Someone that is an unsung hero when they do a good job, but usually the credit is taken by the author themselves. Even if their credits are in the credit sequence of the show, stage play, whatever, usually the author will be the one that gets mostly the credit, because people will be like, obviously the story is following the author's work, so the author wrote this. Just the author's the scriptwriter is piggybacking off the author just to condense everything down. So obviously because of that, people don't really factor in what type of work a scriptwriter has to do to be able to present these things to an audience for, let's say, an anime adaptation or stage play. And so like I said, there is a lot of educational things within this episode about really just discussing the matter of the difficulties of an anime or stage play adaptation. And I will say, I feel really bad for the scriptwriter, because he basically nails it on the head. He's like, regardless of whatever happens or whatever things go sideways, he's going to face the blame. Because it's like, if he does anything that makes the fan base upset, he is going to be viewed like a war criminal. And this stuff just happens. It happens so often to where if someone says the wrong thing or wrong lines, wrong words, wrong opinion at the wrong time, they're suddenly the worst person to ever exist in all of existence itself. Even if it isn't true, the community will make sure that statement will at the very least stick with that person for the rest of their life. And so when you think about it like that, it's pretty sad just how stuff like that can happen, regardless if it really is his fault or not. And the episode kind of nails it on in that he is a mega fan. He spent countless nights and days really pushing aside everything he could to be able to basically get the script out for this show, but obviously it wasn't enough and the offer got really bad. And so he takes it very harshly, and like I said, his idol or his hero pretty much said, "You're a fraud." And that has to be just the most devastating thing about this whole ordeal, and why I feel like when you take a hard look at this, why, he's just super sad about it, and why many people coming off this episode will side with him over the offer, even if the offer to some degree has all rights to be upset, because her story is being tarnished. It is kind of slowly not being what it actually is supposed to represent. Her characters are changed, but obviously with adaptations, things need to be changed and different to fit the media, but at the same time, the integrity, the core essence of the series should be kept intact, and I think that is the most important aspect of any adaptation, which is why I think the anime of Oshi no Ko is so good, by the way, because it doesn't just adapt the manga, it elevates it. It elevates it to a whole new level, because when you watch this episode, there is more immersion with the fact that this series is obviously adapting from a manga, and so Akka and Mingo, when they go to these meetings for the anime of Oshi no Ko, when they're at the staff meetings and all that, they're around the table, and they're discussing what an episode's going to cover or whatever, you know, this episode probably holds a lot of weight emotionally, not just for, let's say, Aka and Mingo, but also just for the staff that's working on Oshi no Ko. And so it just shows the level of quality, detail, and the personal nature that this episode provides to the audience, because it's kind of like the animators and the staff itself is speaking to us, actually speaking to us, and it feels like they're coming through the screen trying to say, this is what really happens with the production behind the scenes. Obviously, this isn't, like I said, a one-size-fits-all type problem, but this is one of the many problems that could appear. So, I don't know, I love Oshi no Ko for this. It is easily one of the best episodes of the series. I love the educational nature of this episode, and I feel like this is one of the big reasons why it became just so popular. Obviously, Oshi no Ko is not just popular because of this, but because of, like, the whole stuff with with the first episode, but I feel like what's retained people's attention so long, for the anime at the very least, is definitely the adaptation just being way beyond the manga. And I don't mean that in any bad means as well for the manga, I'm just saying an anime should be better, and you love to see it. I'll leave it at that, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. It does help me out a lot, and with that, be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.